Hello and welcome to the show. I've been on the road for like 3 weeks, but this is a fun episode. On this episode of the Free Outside Show, I talked to Katie Gunvalson, who set out to break the Pacific Crest Trail record, FKT if you will, and tragedy struck very early on. But why I wanted to have her on is she salvaged the trip, had a very fast, great time out there despite wildfires ruining her original plans, and also had some micro challenges, ways to push herself in the meantime. We also get into what she might want to do in the future a little bit, how it felt out there, how things went, how tough it really was. So it's a good interview. Stick around for that. Just in the spirit of the holidays, finally bringing on sponsors. So JANJI, Janji, they have sponsored me as an athlete on that side for a couple of years at least. And what I love are their Vortex gloves. Actually, I've been wearing those a lot because they're a glove, and they also have like this wind shell that can roll up and just be stored in the wrist of the glove, or it can cover your fingers and give a little extra warmth. So they're our latest sponsor. Stay tuned, support them, and that supports us. And tell them I sent you. Let's see, other news. Year in award show. We did that. We've had a lot of Jeffs. We've had a lot of awards. We've had a lot of adventure, lots of travel. So we are taking this one to, I don't know, just kind of broaden what happens out there, because in an FKT, only one person gets to walk home with that. And if you're second, or if you can't complete it, basically it goes unknown. And that is the interesting, tough thing about it, is you're really going for broke, all or nothing is how that world works. I actually used to be an FKT of the Year voter, but for some reason I have not voted in a couple years. So what other big things are coming down the pike? Well, might be doing a little race you may have heard of sometime in March possibly. Or I may be doing the Cocodona 250 in early May. I may be doing a continuous footpath that you may have heard about on the East Coast sometime this summer, going to try to do that kind of fast. So that's kind of where we're headed. Let's dive into this episode, because I'm in basically my childhood bedroom-ish. It looks like it. You can see my books actually in the background over there. But if you want to help us out, like or subscribe to the show, especially on Spotify, that really helps. And give us a review, write a review on Apple Podcasts, then I will read it out loud. All right, let's get into the interview with Katie.
Believe it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Today on the Free Outside podcast, we have the honor of having Katie Gunvalson, who went after the PCT FKT in 2024 and has 5 other FKTs as well. And so Let's get right into the PCT. What was the goal with the PCT this year, and when did you decide to attempt the record?
Oh, gosh. I've been dreaming about the PCT for the better part of 10 years. And I think I decided I was going to go for the record as soon as I started planning my hike years ago. It was just always the style of hike that I envisioned having. And specifically this year, I had spent the last several years kind of building up to this. And the goal was definitely the record, the southbound record. I should clarify, I went southbound. And but also, if not the goal, then to just hike as fast as possible and achieve second fastest time, or the next best thing.
Totally. So the whole, it was like record is A goal, finish the trail is like B goal type of thing.
For sure. Or record is A goal, and if not record, yeah, that's the best way to say it. Sorry, you can cut that out.
Totally. And so heading into it, what was the planning and the training and the structure heading into it? How did you prepare yourself to go after the record?
I've been a pretty serious road runner for about 14 years, and I shifted more to trail running right around the pandemic when road races were canceled and everything kind of changed. And I picked up trail running in that time, and so I had a really strong base of running. Um, and over the last few years, I've done some multi-day trips, some shorter hikes. Last year, I thru hiked the Arizona Trail, and you asked preparation for this hike specifically, right? Did you ask about this hike specifically?
Yeah, or background through hiking and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So for this hike
So,
specifically, sorry.
oh yeah, and then you yeah, we can go into background on through hiking too. I think that kind of builds into going for a record. So so I guess like Arizona Trail was the intention to do a through hike or was it as a training run too?
A little of both. It was my first it was my first real through hike, and I really wanted to build the skills to attempt the PCT. That was always the big goal for me. And
Hmm.
especially the desert, I really wanted to get experience in that sort of terrain. I live in the Pacific Northwest, where it's not very desert-like. So building through hiking skills and then also getting that desert experience was really the main goal of the Arizona Trail.
Totally. Yeah, and you met Troy Yardsale up.
Yeah,
Well, you met him on the PCT, right?
I did.
Or
Yeah. I met him in 2021, which was my first like multi-day type thing. And that was a record attempt on the Washington section of the PCT. Kind of nuts.
okay.
So yeah, I met Troy out in Washington, and he was on his Soba through attempt, but it was a really bad fire year, so he ended up getting off. But yeah.
Totally. And so did you go after it self-supported, unsupported? What was the plan with Washington? And was that also like a jumping off to prepare for the bigger PCT at some point?
Yeah, Washington was sort of an experiment. It was a supported attempt. So I went out there with full on running gear, like I had a running pack and like you wore running shorts. And I mean, I guess you do through hiking too, but I was not prepared for the long remote sections of Washington without access to support. So I got humbled very quickly and failed miserably. But it was a great learning experience.
Yeah, what happened? What went wrong on that?
Everything. Oh my God. First, I wore cotton socks, which I definitely don't recommend doing that. I had blisters. My entire feet were blisters after like the second day. And like I said, I was carrying running gear, like a 15-liter pack, and I basically got to the start of Section K and realized I wasn't on pace anymore, and I wasn't able to carry, like literally carry the food or gear that I needed into that next section. So I actually made the decision to skip around that section. That made, record was off, like the whole thing was off. But I continued hiking for whatever reason, and I like finished the rest of Washington by running it, and just kind of got the bug for the multi-day stuff.
Okay. So that's probably where you got the bug and then you trained the Arizona Trail, we'll call it. And
Mhm.
then let's dive into the PCT. So your intentions are the record and then northbound or southbound.
I went southbound.
And then self-supported or supported. What was the plan?
I kind of blurred the lines a little bit. I did have support, but it wasn't support in like the traditional sense. My
Mhm.
my husband is my crew, and he's a school teacher. So from the get-go, I knew he would only have about 3 or 4 weeks with me. So we kind of organized it more like dedicated trail magic, and he would
Mhm.
like meet me at a road and have some food, or sometimes we could camp together or something like that. Um, but I felt really committed to doing the hike, not self-supported, but like on my own. So I carried all my gear from start to finish. He never muled any of my stuff. I carried all my own food. Like I did all of it. And then at the end of the 3 weeks that he had, he went home and I continued self-supported for the rest of the hike.
Okay. So, okay, let's just go into the PCT then. So, start out southbound. What's your start date?
July 17th.
July 17th, and then planned setup, itinerary, everything set up to break the record. You start out, you have 3 weeks of support. How did Washington go?
I hit a fire closure in the first 24 hours.
Oh no. Like it hadn't started till you started pretty much.
There was a lightning storm on my first night on the trail. I had already tagged the border and I camped at like Woody Pass, and there was a lightning storm and it set a whole bunch of fires off. And by the time I got back to Hearts, I wasn't allowed to go into the next section.
And so what happens here? What goes through your mind? What's the planning? How do you deal with this?
I was devastated. I mean, I didn't even get to I didn't even get to start.
Yeah.
But I had worked so hard to be there, and there were 2,400 other miles that I could hike. It seemed ridiculous to me to quit. Like, I always knew the record was maybe going to happen, right? Like maybe that would happen.
Yeah.
But I knew that even if it weren't going to like come to pass, that I would still want to continue hiking. And so, I just decided to keep going.
Yeah. And then but FKT attempts already over in day
Before
one.
it even started. Yeah. I mean, it didn't even start, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how do you deal with that? Is your husband there? Is it just like really hard and emotional seeing this big thing end without really even a chance?
Oh yeah. So he met me at Hearts Pass, and there was a PCTA person there. There was a forest ranger there. Like everyone's, like you can't go on. And we kind of game planned for a minute and talked through our options. And I don't think it really like registered for me in the moment what was happening. It was just kind of like, okay, well, you have to get in the car and we have to get to the next place and you have to keep going. Like there's no option to walk around this. So like, let's just keep going. And sorry, you asked what was going through my head when this happened.
Yeah. And like how you and your husband, like it must be really devastating to have to just change the entire plan from record to just get around this fire.
Uh-huh. Oh, I mean, I think I probably cried all night. And
Totally, for good reason.
frankly, like spent the whole hike devastated. I mean, just really processing what I like really hoped the hike would be, and then what it ultimately became, and knowing like my fate of the hike before it even started was agonizing. It was so difficult. But I also was really committed to doing this thing and had spent so much time and money and resources, and I left the job to be there, and I was determined to just do the best I could with what I had.
Totally. And so did you stick to the plan of still moving fast and efficiently even though the FKT was off?
I did, yeah. Initially, I thought, well, this is just this one section of trail, and I'll just continue on at record pace, and it'll be that next best thing, right? Like I'll still get to the end and have done it the way that I wanted to. That kind of kept changing because I kept hitting more fires. It ended up being a pretty bad fire year. But
Yeah.
I never went out there to have a traditional through hike. Like I never went out there to hike for 5 or 6 months. I went out to hike in 2 months. And So I just stuck to a schedule of like hiking 15 to 18 hours a day, and whatever miles came were the miles that came. And I tried not to get too attached to what those numbers were. And yeah, just like followed through and having a fast hike, I guess.
Yeah. And so when this Eagle basically disappears, do you start coming up with like maybe certain sections I can go after the record on or things like that? Do you find different ways to motivate yourself in that way?
I definitely tried to. I kept like running into more barriers, like, oh, I'll go and do Oregon in a set amount of time, and then there was a fire closure in Oregon, or yeah, I would have like these little goals, and then something would happen, and I would have to pivot again and again, and towards the end, the goal was almost completely arbitrary. It was like finish in a number of days. I don't know, because I lost track of the miles at a certain point because it just like kept changing. And I think the real motivation to like keep going was this like commitment to myself, like all of the versions of myself that had worked so hard to be there. I couldn't let them down.
Totally. And I think that's the biggest thing about through hiking is there's so many external factors that play a role in it. Like some people starting early, it can be snow or fires or even like flooding and things like that, or COVID a few years ago. It's just like you have to be tied to such an intrinsic why in doing it, or else you're probably going to be disappointed too by the external validation. Was that something that was hard to come to grips with throughout the trail too, of like, this has to be for me because it's so much more unorthodox than I expected it to be?
Yeah, I mean, just coming to terms with the fact that like this means nothing. You know what I mean? Like this just like totally doesn't matter, but it can matter to me. Like I can make this worthwhile even if no one cares about it.
Yeah. What were some of the high points or the coolest parts, or kind of like maybe big days or things where you really got to have some growth out there, even though maybe the external validation had disappeared?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly did a lot of big days. Up in Washington, I did a couple 45s, a bunch of 40s. I was stoked about that. I mean, it's rough terrain up there, and I had just started the hike, and I'm like coming off of days like that, literally running and feeling amazing was like such a high, and like really made me
Mhm.
realize like this is for me. Like I might not be going for the record in this moment, but like I will, like I can. And I yeah, just found so much joy in those moments. But there were like lots of other highs of that were almost like part of a more traditional through hike, like getting to meet some people on the trail, and being able to like stop and talk and not feel like I'm wasting my time or something. It was really great to kind of like blend the two types of hikes. I mean, I was still like hiking all day, but I could kind of relax in a way too.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Did it feel like it was hard to even trust the trail this year with how many fires and closures and reroutes and stuff came up too? Was it like check your phone every time you had service to see what new happened?
Oh yeah, it was horrible. I thought that I had finished all the fires after NorCal. There was a really big one up there this year, the Park Fire. It pretty much intersected the whole area that was burned by the Dixie Fire a few years ago. So it's just like this massive area that's so messed up now. But after that section, I was very optimistic that that would be the end. I was going into the Sierra, and then I was going into the desert, and that would be it. But I actually hit two fires in the desert, like in my last couple of weeks, and I wasn't even paying attention, and I got a Garmin InReach message from Nick Fowler, and he was like, hey, don't know if you know this, but stay away from Wrightwood or something. And I was like, oh my God, what? Like, you've got to be kidding me. This is never going to end. Like the torture of this trail is never going to end for me. And yeah, that was horrible.
Yeah. And of all people, like Nick got a very lucky, clean PCT.
Well,
And then,
yeah, and I'll be honest, like one of the reasons I really went for it, I've always wanted to go southbound, but after seeing 3 records get set southbound last year, I thought, okay, game on. Like it's possible. You can have a clean PCT. And that just wasn't my year.
totally. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, let's just talk about kind of as you're winding down the trail and I mean, another fire in Brightwood. What what kind of goes through your mind of the thoughts of what you did out there versus what it was going to be? Was it fulfilling? Was it what you wanted? I mean, maybe not what you wanted, but did you make of it what you wanted to make of it type of thing? Did you get out of it what you wanted?
I'm figuring that out. Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, like in that moment with that last fire, it kind of drug everything back up and I was like, why am I still out here? Like, why didn't I quit? This is so ridiculous. I can't believe all of these fires and like all this stuff has happened. I should have quit. But I'm really glad that I didn't. And it was 100% worthwhile to finish the thing. But like I'm still processing the did I get out of it what I wanted? I don't know. I think I might have to process this for a long time.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really, I don't know, like neglected point of a lot of these adventures and things too, and especially FKTs, because even in races there's like a podium, but in FKTs, anyone who's not number one with which takes some luck as well doesn't get to count. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and so does that make you? I guess does it? Okay, I'm gonna just open it. You wanted to talk about the end of the PCT. What about that do you want to talk about?
I don't know what you know. Do you know anything about this?
I don't think so.
Okay, great. So at the end of the PCT, I had always planned to kind of go for it in the desert. Like, if I'm feeling good, I'm gonna start doing bigger days, and I just want to like go for it at the end, no matter what. And I hit that fire in Wrightwood that we talked about, which kind of threw everything off. And at the end of the hike, I was still feeling really physically fantastic. Like I didn't have any injuries. I didn't have a single blister for the entire hike. And I know, right? And I just kind of realized that I'm used to be a road marathoner, so I have this like marathon background, and I kind of realized it was the last 10K of the race, and it was time to go. And so in the last 3 days, I decided to just stop sleeping, and I just like did a continuous push for the last 140 miles, and just kind of like went there, even though I had no reason, there was no reward. I just went for it. Yeah.
Yeah. And how long did that 140 miles take?
Like 65 hours.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome. And so you got to finish feeling like you were completely spent
I
and
finished,
how you expected to feel.
yeah, I finished delirious. Yeah, losing my
That's
mind.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then so I guess at the end did that like put closure on the effort at least, like feeling very broken down, beaten down? Is that sort of why you wanted to sprint to the end?
A little bit for sure. I mean, part of it was almost this desperation to just be finished. Like I just, as I said, it was almost agonizing, just mentally, really difficult to like keep myself in that situation for such a long time. And by the end, I just really, really, really wanted to be done, and kind of was doing the math and realized like, oh, if I stop sleeping, I'll be done in 2 days. So let's go, So, yeah, I mean, I wanted that experience for sure. And I think I also really wanted to be done.
Yeah, and didn't you set the FKT at least on section A of it then?
I did. That was totally unintentional. But I like looked up all the times and I realized it was faster. So there it is. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, I want to dive into some of the more granular details then,
Okay.
or at least the mindset. So when you're out there and it your goal is already gone, how are you motivating yourself to cover 45 miles a day and push really hard? Like what about it was what you wanted to go after? What was your why at that moment?
Um, I like I said, like I was out there to do the trail a certain way. Like I was out there to run and hike and cover as many miles as I could per day. Um, so I really just tried to focus on the day I was in and get the miles that I could and not try to look too far beyond that because every day was different and I kept walking into new challenges and it just became get the best out of yourself on this day, every single day, day after
Yeah.
day.
Was it proving to yourself that you could move that way too, almost?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, not only just like a single big day, but to do it consecutively,
Mhm.
and to like keep doing it and proving to myself that I could keep doing it and that the record at that point was out of my control. I couldn't control the fires, um, but I could control like what I did on this hike and how that can help me in the future to like do this again or another adventure. So yeah, like the motivation of continuing to get better too.
Totally. Yeah, and you must have learned so much out there. So what was
Mhm.
like the schedule to have your FKT style schedule? Like when are you getting up? When are you going to bed? That type of thing.
What I actually ended up doing.
Yeah, yeah, like for when you're pushing yourself in this way, what worked?
Yeah, I mean, on the bigger days, I would start hiking at 4 or 5 in the morning, and I would end at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. I on this hike, because there was no record, I really tried to allow myself to sleep. So I tried to sleep 6 or 7 hours every night because I could, until the end, obviously. Um, and yeah, I mean, I feel like I structured my day to like have very limited breaks, or if I did, they were just really quick ones, and just do everything walking, and basically the time that I'm not hiking, I'm sleeping.
Yeah. And what was your food strategy? What are you fueling with out there? Did you have a stove, that kind of thing?
Oh no, oh no, I was cold soaking.
Totally.
The good old Talenti jar. In the
Mhm.
beginning, I did a lot of liquid calories, a lot of tailwind, a lot of carbs fuel, um, and just like whatever carnation instant stuff that I could get, and a lot of like runner food, like runner gels and stuff. I tend to be really, I don't have an appetite for a long time, or like for a while in events like this. Like, I don't think I felt hungry until the Sierra. Um,
Whoa.
so yeah. So and I also tend to like have a lot of nausea, so I just have a horrible time eating, basically. So for the first month, I ate a lot of gels and liquid. And then when I'm actually eating food, yeah, cold soak stuff, a lot of ramen with peanut butter and like couscous and beans. Um, the traditional tiger trash meals.
Yeah, I mean I really want to talk about how to plan for an FKT that's so long. Did you come up with this spreadsheet? Did you know what you were going to eat every day? How did you even attack the planning process of the PCT FKT?
Yeah, I had a spreadsheet. And I had a lot of help from previous record holders or record attempters, in making my spreadsheet, so that was great. But I don't know. I put together a resupply plan that kind of would be the most efficient way to go through the towns, and then I just kind of like would do the math on the mileage to figure out how much food I would throw in each box. And yeah, I don't know if that's answering your question, but yeah, I mean, it's a lot like planning a normal through hike, honestly.
Yeah, I'm really wondering, just especially on the calorie aspect of not stomaching or being that hungry until the Sierra, are you just going pure calories, not worried about what it is because you're like, I'll just force it down type of thing? Or yeah, how are you taking that into account?
Yeah, I had planned to be able to eat. So I
Okay.
so I planned to have like all the normal stuff, you know, like your bars and your candy and your chips or whatever, but it turned out to just be whatever you can get down. So I tried to plan some like contingency things, knowing that I would likely struggle with eating while out there. So I had a lot of liquid calories, like a lot of Tailwind, a lot of Carnation instant breakfast, a lot of hot cocoa mix, like just whatever was gonna like beef up the calories that way. And I also relied pretty heavily on candy.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be like a trend. Even like Tara Dower's trail name is Candy Mama. I mean, we act like it's this perfect whole food. Yeah, it's got calories. It's simple carbs.
Oh yeah, when people ask me what I eat all the time on the trail, and when they find out that it's usually garbage, they're like horrified.
Yeah, I mean, Liz said that you love beverages, and I
Yeah.
may have acquired a picture of you with like 10 beverages in front of you.
Look, it's hard to eat when you're like pushing your body to like those limits, or it's hard for me anyway. So all the beverages, bring them on. I want them all.
Yeah, totally. And so, yeah, let's get into gear now too. What was your gear setup for the FKT, especially when you kind of left your husband and were truly self-supported?
Yeah, I used the same gear for the whole trail. I used like the same pack and everything. Like I was honestly like he did not. I didn't switch out gear. He didn't mule gear. Like I was truly self-supported in the gear aspect. But I used the Nashville pack cutaway. That was my pack, and like one of the like accordion foam mats to sleep on, and I just cut it to be like literally the smallest size possible to just like fit in the back of the pack. And that was my sleeping mat. And then I had a 20-degree quilt for sleeping. And then like, yeah, I used the Talenti jar to cold soak for food, and had like a beachery.
Tarp?
No, oh yeah, my Chelsea, of course. I used the Z-Packs Soulplex, or whatever their little one-person trekking pole tent is. And I used that tent on the AZT as well. So I I used my whole setup on the AZT actually. So I was really familiar with all of my gear and felt like really confident with all of that stuff.
Totally. Yeah. And then tracking poles too.
Yeah, I only use one trekking pole, but it was
Okay.
just the Z-Packs pole, whatever, their little carbon fiber pole. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then, so I guess, what are we, a couple months removed? Are you a person looking forward or looking at other FKTs or options, or still kind of not sure where things are at?
I think based on how the end of the PCT went, it is obvious to me that that is the thing I aspire to do, is like break myself. So yeah, I'm definitely thinking about FKTs. I don't know if I will ever go after something quite as long as the PCT, but famous last words, you know, never say never and all that. But yeah, I mean, I think for sure I have unfinished business in Washington, but beyond that, we'll see.
Yeah. So, yeah, do you aspire to do something like the Arizona Trail or something too? That seems like a cool distance for you.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. This year, man, that record's getting steep. I don't know. I'm afraid of it now.
Yeah, but those are the things you got to go after when you're afraid of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely curious about all of it. If anything, I've have like a lot more questions than answers after this hike.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think it's like this really good lesson for us all to think about too is the only people that end up in like outside or backpacker are the accomplishments too. And I think that just makes it, I don't know, either feel like way more people accomplish things than fail or just ignores the fact that there are so many failures within each accomplishment. Even like how many, 6 or 7 failed attempts on the Arizona Trail this year. And
Hmm.
what did we get? 2 records or something? So,
Yeah, totally. And I thought so much about failure on this hike. I had a very long time to think. And one of the hikes that really inspired me the most on this journey and like kept I kept coming back to it on my hike was an FKT attempt by Daisy Hargrave in 2016, I think. And she went after it at the same time as another woman, Carly Moray, and they both hit a fire closure at some point in their attempt. And Carly ended her attempt, and Daisy kept going, and she ultimately finished her hike. And I don't know anything about it beyond like those facts that she went after this thing, got stopped by fire, and continued anyway. And there's nothing on outside about this, and there's nothing on the FKT website about this, and like it's this total like little thing that I know, and it's stuck in my brain. Like, yeah, but you could finish. Like a woman did finish. Like you could
mhm.
keep going, and it almost inspired me more than any actual record while I was out there.
Totally. I mean, I think that's what anyone looking at your story should feel too is
Thanks.
you went out there to do something and were not able to. And so you made the best of what you did and you set out and did what you accomplished or what you set out to accomplish just without a few sections that were not allowed to accomplish.
Yeah. Yeah, it was tough to come home and like be on the other side of it because it was very much like, did I do it? Like, did I do it? Like, I know I didn't get like the ultimate goal, but like, did I do it? And I really struggled with that for a while. And everyone was like, yeah, of course you did it. What do you mean? And it's just like, I don't know.
Mhm.
Like, it's confusing. And I think trails like the PCT especially are just going to keep getting more like this is just going to keep happening. So ultimately,
Yeah.
like it's on the person hiking to find the meaning in whatever they're doing. And yeah, I hope that's the takeaway, right? Like gonna have to figure it out.
Yeah. What was the post trail depression or like all that like? Because it had to come with so much more weight too. Was it
Hmm.
like, yeah. How has that been?
Still in it. Um,
Yep.
yeah, it's been hard. I mean, the come down has been like not only is it over, but I didn't get what I wanted, and not only did I not get what I wanted, but it like really didn't come to fruition, and it's been hard. I don't know. I don't. Yeah, it's been hard.
Is it hard to see other even FKTs like on the Arizona Trail and just even think like that could have been me type of thing?
A little bit. I mean, a little bit. At the same time, it's like exciting. Like I had a lot of fun following all the people on the AZT because I was out hiking all summer. I didn't get to follow any of the records, and it was fun
Mhm.
to kind of feel like part of it in a way, like following along. Um, but hard too because yeah, like I did want that to be me. I don't know. It's been a time.
Yeah, well, and in that like athlete to coach and stuff, like we talk a lot about before FKTs, like the empowerment and the goal and the really the bravery is showing up to start it and tell people what you're starting, because it is so hard and there's such a failure risk, whether it's not good enough or injury or something out of your control like you. I think really the celebrated thing should be the putting yourself out there. But I mean, in the last, since I've been doing them, it seems like it's scarier and scarier to put something out there like that, because I don't know, maybe it's more attention or whatever, but it feels
Yeah.
scary to put it out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, case in point, I don't really put myself out. I mean, I'm not really online. Like I didn't really publicize this hike or anything because it's scary, and like you don't want people to know that you failed or like didn't get what you went after, you know. Like you want to be I'm really talking about myself here, but like I want to be the person who like did it and like got the thing. And I think what I'm really trying to take away from this experience is like you don't have to be the person who gets the thing for it to matter or to resonate with people. And what I did was just as important. If I don't think more important, but like just as important for me to like finish it and show people that that's possible too, as it is to set a record.
Yeah. And I'm friends with Eric Halston, who went after the Arizona Trail record, and just after a year of thinking about it, just didn't have the drive to go after it. And I think like totally different circumstance, but it shows what goes into these records. Like so much has to hit at the perfect amount of time to set a multi-day record, that I think it's just so lost in some of these stories about they set this record, here's how, here's what they ate, here's how many nights of sleep. It's like there is this whole other luck side of it, of just every single factor. And then beyond that, there's this belief in yourself and this motivation too. And you have to hit 100% of those or you don't have a chance. And it's just, I know it's such a wild world.
It's wild, but I mean, that is also what I find so interesting about this sport, right? Like, it's not just one thing. It's not just being the most physically capable. It's also about like efficiency and logistics and gear and making good decisions. It's everything. And there's a reason I'm not running road marathons anymore. You know, like this stuff. It's a puzzle, and I want to figure it out.
Yeah. And you don't have a chance to figure it out unless you show up and keep trying, even if it doesn't work once or twice,
Yeah,
5 times.
for sure. And you don't get to figure it out if you quit every time you fail. Like sometimes you just have to like see it through and find out who you're going to be on the other side.
Totally. All right, let's close with a couple fun questions.
Okay.
So how did you get your trail name? I believe it's Raven, right?
Raven. Yeah. Well, I don't have a really fun answer. I gave it to myself. Is that uncool?
I mean, who cares if it's ungear anymore? Miss no social media presence, no online presence, doesn't care.
Who's gonna give me a trail name? Like I literally hiked 2,000 plus miles completely by myself on the PCT. Nobody was there to give me a trail name.
Totally. So why did you give yourself Raven?
A whole bunch of reasons. But ravens are like an icon. They're like representative of transformation. And I took on this name prior to this hike specifically, but I really feel as though I embody that, and I had to transform myself to be the person who does this stuff. Like I didn't grow up running or hiking or backpacking or camping or any of that. And yeah, it just really resonated with me.
Well, I mean, I like the one-word trail names at least too. So you picked a good one to give yourself. And then you're also an artist. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I'm a print media artist, and right now I do like a lot of paper zines with the risograph printing, which is basically screen printing but for paper. So yeah, I work with analog, and you like create layers and like fuse them all together and print them into like something new. And yeah, it's really interesting and fun and not at all lucrative.
Well, I mean, it's millennial hobbies in general. Nothing's lucrative anymore. Look at me, I'm a podcaster.
Yeah, you are.
Okay, and then my last question is, Liz says you're obsessed with yo-yo adventures. What does that even mean?
God, I am. It means I can't only do things once. And some examples are I do have a few like very minor FKTs, and most of them are out and backs or doubles because I don't know. I'm fascinated with this idea of like, this is so hard, you can do it once, but like, can you turn around and do it again? Like, that is so much harder, not just physically, but like really mentally, like I just finished. What do you mean I have to do it again? So yeah.
You
Really?
like finishing and having to run back all the way to your car?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I like the idea of having to do it twice and like where you have to go mentally in order to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think mental toughness is probably one of your major strengths, it sounds like.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, the ability to push through after disappointment on day one says a lot about you as a person. So
Thanks. Or a lot
it's
of
been really
stupidness. I don't know.
well, maybe stubbornness, but I think that's involved in mental toughness as well. So.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining. This was, I mean, really good and also sad too, but
Yeah.
I think it's a really impactful story of finish what you start type of thing. Is there any last words you want to say on kind of the whole aspect of do what you set out to?
Well, I don't know. I mean, yeah, do what you set out to do, and also don't be afraid to try things. Like, it's okay to fail, and you can find success in anything. So I definitely encourage people to just try stuff, especially women. Like, I think more women just need to get out there and try it and see what happens.
Yeah, failure is not as scary as it sounds when you're starting something. Cool. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
All right, thanks for listening. Support Janji, JANJI.com, and tell them I sent you. Other than that, guys, we have some big plans for the New Year's. All right, stay elite, my friends.